Welcome to Becoming Church, the podcast where we discuss how the message and movement of Jesus is not just about becoming Christians, but about becoming the church. I'm your host, Kristin Mockler-Young, and this is our 100th episode of Becoming Church. So we were thinking about it and thought, you know what? Let's do something a little bit different. So today, for this 100th episode, the tables are turned. I am going to be interviewed by someone who, if you've been around since episode 1, you are familiar with. It is the one and the only Naeem Fazal. Naeem, welcome back to the podcast.
Woo-hoo! I'm clapping for myself. Yes.
I'll clap for you too.
Okay, thank you. Someone needs to, Yes, good to be back with you once again. So it's going to be fun for me to interview you because we're going to be talking about why I left. Like, why did you kick me out? The controversy, the speculation, the rumors about the usurping. Is that a word? Usurping?
I believe so. Yes.
That's a word. Yeah. The rebellion. What's another word?
You're going to let me tell the real story then, actually, of how it happened that you came off of this podcast.
I don't want your stinking conspiracy theories. Okay. We're going to be talking about the truth here.
Okay.
So let's talk about it. So I got a couple of questions for you. Number one, tell us the story. I don't know if that's a question. It is a question, possibly. Tell us a story about how Becoming Church, the podcast, started.
Yeah. Well, didn't this podcast start because yours kind of went downhill a little bit?
Can you spell? Okay.
Yeah. This is when the people that are listening are like, oh, I need to go over to YouTube. This is going to be a very entertaining one to watch, by the way. No, Becoming Church started in, what year was it? It was only a couple years ago.
Yeah, 2022 or 1?
Yeah, I think so. Somewhere around there. We started this podcast as a discipleship tool for our people. Everything was kind of coming back post-COVID. We were trying to get people back to church, but they were hesitant. And so we were like, you know what? We used to do this thing called Morning Breath. Remember Morning Breath?
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Where we would do Instagram Live and Facebook Live 3 days a week or every day for a little while and just kind of like speak life into our people and do these live devotions. And then that kind of was like on its way out. And so we were like, let's do a podcast. And so it started as me and you talking about like the fundamentals of Mosaic Church and what do we believe and what's important to us and all that.
Yeah, I do remember that. So let's talk about the of my podcast. So so I had a podcast and you had done a takeover, right? A season for that?
Yes. Yeah. In the summer, I did a takeover season, which I'd never done a podcast or thought about doing a podcast.
And you did such a great job. And you had some amazing people on. And then when COVID hit, we stopped that because of Vinny. If you remember Vinny, he was our host and our producer, I would say. And and then, yes, we started that. I do remember that. So, okay, so we're in this thing. We start this thing. I do remember that at one point when we started, it was a picture of you and me. Okay, and Becoming Church.
It was a picture of you and me until just a couple of months ago, actually.
Oh, that's true, too. So what happened to you and me? What happened?
I don't remember. Maybe you can enlighten me. I don't remember exactly how it went from a podcast of you and I talking to like me on my own doing interviews. I don't remember if it was like, hey, let me try a thing. We ran through all of the content that we'd kind of come up with as far as, giving our people the essentials of Mosaic. And I don't know, maybe I was like, let's just try it. Is that what you remember?
Yes. I think I remember me going, hey, so besides just the two of us, let's get some more people on here. And maybe we can make this as a resource for our church. I remember being super hyped about the idea of like, hey, let's be the church, not go to church. Jesus didn't make us Christians. He made us the church. Right. And so, and you love that because that's part of your story. And you've always loved the church, obviously, because you've been planting a ministry or a church your whole life, it seems like, which that'd be interesting to talk to about as well. Yeah. So, we started with that and then you started interviewing some people and then I'm like, you know what? Why do you even need me to be on here? I feel like the third wheel, rejected, all those things,
Yes.
and not really. And then I said, hey, why don't you just take it? And what you have done, what I'm just, I just want people to know, what started off as a church podcast has now become like a national Christian podcast hosted by you, and I'm so glad my picture's out.
Yes.
And you're in, and you've become like this amazing podcaster and a host. In fact, a lot of people have said on your show and also out of your show, but like off your show, said that you have got a skill indeed. And you'd never thought, right? Did you ever think you were going to be a podcaster?
No, I never thought I'd be a podcaster. I always have wanted to be a writer, but to me, that's a very different thing. Like, I guess they're both words, teaching, communicating, but no, I would have never expected to be a podcaster or be behind a microphone.
Okay. So for the listeners who don't know, you went from teacher, right? Teacher. And then you were also doing, you were still in the teaching world, as in you were doing, tutoring and all that. You went from teaching, tutoring, and into podcasting. How many years was that? Because I want to say there was
I taught kindergarten for like 12 or 13 years. I was tutoring part-time while I had a toddler and a baby because I had come out of a toxic situation and really needed to like recenter everything. And then you and Mike brought me on staff at Mosaic. So there was a couple of years of already trying to figure out what it means to be in ministry. And that was also not something that I saw for my life. And then from there, moving into podcasting, it was all within a couple of years, actually. So it felt like it was pretty quick.
So you were, I just want people to know you were hosting a national podcast, and you were in ministry, less than, 5 years, I would say, of course. Well, yeah, less than 5 years, even less than that.
Yeah.
So
like
that's
2 or 3
amazing.
years, probably.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, obviously you did not know you were going to get into this. And then, the truth is, I don't think you even realized how popular it would get, right?
Correct. Because there are podcasts that I listen to. So probably for the first year, at least I was like, does anybody even need this? Like, do we even need another podcast? Everybody and their mother, it seems like, has a podcast. But then people kept reaching out and saying, hey, this has helped me. Or what it really clicked it for me was when other people started approaching me about being on the show. And I was like, how do you even know that we exist? And that's when it kind of clicked that, people were actually listening and it was a good show and it was helping people.
Right.
And it was legit.
All right. So now you are, like, when you talk about being legit, now you have legit cred in the podcast world because publishers are sending you content, books, and asking you if their authors could be on the show.
Yeah. So it's really fun to go get to my mailbox and then pull out, even my husband now, Peter, will be like, you got another book. Let's see who this is from, because they will just, authors and publishers will just send me their books, in hopes that, I will read them, talk about them, interview their authors. That's been really fun.
That's awesome. Hey, by the way, I know a book that's coming out.
Yeah.
And so
in May.
Yeah, in May. And
is it called Tomorrow Needs You by Naeem Fazal?
It is. I know the author personally. I can vouch for him. Super guy. So you might want to consider.
Slot you to talk about it.
Yeah, if you don't mind, make the time.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Thanks. All right. So tell me why, now that you know what it is, you know what it is, what has become. Why do you? What's your why? Like, why do you want to keep doing this?
Because I think that it is giving people hope. I will say, even for me as the host, this is the highlight of my week. So, for example, this past week, I recorded an episode and I was not looking forward to it, but the world is kind of a dumpster fire right now. Like, in case people didn't know, it's just very heavy. There's a lot going on. I had found out the night before that a friend of mine had passed away. I was getting texts from other people within our church of like, hey, I might have this diagnosis. Like it was just a very, very heavy moment. And I came into the studio and I was like, I don't know if I can do this today. Like, I don't know if I can be in the right place to point people to hope and whatever. And at the end of the hour-long interview with that guest, I just was reminded like, this actually matters. And it's a highlight of my week. I always feel better no matter who I'm talking to. And I think it's because there's always an underlying element of hope in these conversations. It constantly reminds people that God is with them, that they don't have to have arrived as a Christian, that there's grace, for their mistakes and all of that. And it always reminds me that it's going to help people and help them to see themselves that the way God sees them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So like why, right? I wrote a question down. I was going to ask you, and I don't want to get heavy so fast into this, but I think it'd be worth it, right? So what would make you stop? Because I mean, you personally have things that you've had to overcome.
Sure.
People's opinions, all those things. Obstacles, in some form or fashion, rejection. Maybe you went after a personality, then they were like, nah, not interested. Who are you? But is there something that'll make you stop?
I don't know. Because I've gotten no's. I've asked people, and they've said no, either they're always very kind. We don't have time or whatever. They are on my list, by the way, to circle back to now that the show has like been legitimized a little bit. I am going to follow up and try again.
Hey,
what would make me?
I'll call too for you. You know that.
Oh, yes.
I'll say yes.
What would make me stop? I think if people just were not interested. I think if it became just another church podcast. That's how I like to describe it to people. I know there are lots and lots of podcasts where like authors will go on and talk about their book. And I try to be very intentional in not having those same conversations here. I think the only way I would stop is if people were like, this is boring. This is not helping me. We're not listening anymore. We can get the same exact conversation on another show.
Okay. So you wouldn't stop because of resistance. You would probably stop because if it lost its vision and purpose of becoming a unique place and space where you can hear opposite views, discuss really relevant things. And so over all these episodes, and I've listened to several, you've had like seemingly polar opposite of not just personalities, but also content, right? And so some of them have been totally G-rated, others of them fully R-rated.
I'm not sure that's accurate.
Listen, it has. I mean, you even had a warning on one of the episodes. Hey, do not let your kids listen to this. You remember that? What do you call that?
Poor Megan. Yes. We went on a rabbit trail and started talking about a TV show that kind of portrays churches and mega churches in like a satire way. And I'd only been a couple episodes in. So we were talking about how funny it is. And then I got more into it and I was like, oh, this is not content we should be promoting on our show. Right.
Yes. So in terms of content and your people, your guests, let's talk about your guests. Have you had a terrible interview? Like a terrible? I want names and numbers.
Okay, I want
to send them after you mention them. I want to send this to them.
There are two that come to mind.
Okay.
One of them you have not heard because no one has heard it. Because the interview was so, I'm trying to find the right word. It did not feel real enough for me to give a place on this platform. As in, I was trying to dig in and ask questions and kind of like peek behind the curtain and help people understand your position and what life might be like for you. And all of the answers were just like, no, I'm good. Everything's easy. I've never had a problem. No one's ever pushed back against me ever. And I was like, this cannot be real. Like, this cannot be real.
Yeah.
So I didn't even put that one up.
Oh, okay. So you were like, you know what? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's is not substantial.
We
It's
don't
not just
do fake here. We like only, I need people to show up and say what's real. And if you're not going to
okay.
say what's real,
Now,
there's lots of church podcasts for you to go on, but it's not this one.
I do want to circle back when you're talking about there's no fake here, because I'm pretty sure your fingernails are fake.
My fingernails are fake.
They are.
The press
So
always and forever.
you mostly don't do fake. Okay, got it.
Yes.
Okay. Just trying to keep it real. Just kind of keep it 100.
Appreciate it.
All right. So who's the other person?
The other one is an episode that people have heard.
Okay.
But what they would not know is that it is highly edited more than I have ever edited an episode ever in the history of the show. You want me to expound on that, don't you? You're like, say more things.
Yeah. I mean, like, listen, some of your people are like, which episode? I want to know who. What?
That I will not tell you. You have to try to listen
No
and figure
clues.
it out.
Come on.
But here's what happened.
Okay.
We engaged in a conversation, and my guest was made a very broad assumption that we believed the same thing about people, and that everyone listening kind of believed the same thing about a particular group of people.
Okay.
And it felt very shaming. And I was not about to put that out there, even though it was something that I disagreed with. I did not want any of my listeners hearing that come into their ears or their brains or their hearts. Now, here's what I will say.
Okay.
Here's the only clue I will give you is that this happened early on in the show when I was a little tiny baby podcast host and did not really know what to do if people went off script.
Oh,
I think if I had that conversation now, I would lean into the conflict. I think I would lean into that and ask more questions of like, why do you think this? Or why do you think that? Or does this actually sound like Jesus when you say these things? You know?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, we are definitely going to talk about the whole Little Baby podcast and how you get to it. I think there are some people listening. They're going, you know what? I would love to get where she is. So we'll talk a little bit about that in just a bit. But let's keep it going. About your guests. Have you ever made a guest cry? Or have a guest ever made you cry?
Both. I am more prone to make my guest cry, which I don't do on purpose, but has happened multiple times. Jamie Nato cried on here, and she's known to be a really funny comedian. And so I made her cry. I made Elizabeth Tabish cry when I was telling her how much The Chosen has meant to me. She plays Mary Magdalene on The Chosen.
Okay.
I made her cry. I made Ben Kramer cry when we were talking about how to be a pastor post-election. Back to, I want to talk about real stuff. And so I want people to understand the impact that they're making. And I want them to talk about things that are real and that matter and that are applicable to the people that are listening in the real actual world. So sometimes when you do that, it gets a little bit tender.
Okay. Do you pay them more if they do cry?
No, I don't pay any of them.
No one gets paid to be on your podcast. Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. And you said they've made you cry.
Yes, I think it was actually.
Okay.
Actually, I think a couple times. So Dave Gibbons caught me off guard. And we were talking about diverse, multi-ethnic churches and things like that. And he turned the tables on me and he started asking me questions about how I became, this kind of person where I'm alert to things. And he just got very complimentary and talking about how my faith has changed. And he was asking me questions like, what would Kristin from your childhood or what would Kristin from 10 years ago have to say about the version of you that you've become? And like I said, I was not really prepared for that. So it caught me off guard. And then I realized, I guess, how proud of myself I am and just the growth that I've made. And so, yeah, that was a tender, emotional moment for me.
Now I listened to that episode, and I knew you had lost it a little bit, but I couldn't tell because obviously I was listening to it.
Yes.
And so when we talk about crying, no one's like boo-hooing. There's a lot of just tenderness and like just your, eye sweating situation going on.
Yes.
Eye sweating. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Mary Van Geffen was another one, which she's a parenting coach. And so we were talking about parenting, and she started talking to, like, what she said, little Kristin, like parenting like the younger child in me.
Oh, wow.
And she even called it out. She was like, I see you getting emotional. What's going on?
No way. Yeah. See, that'd be tough. That'd be tough, but that would be, whew. Yeah. Okay. So you've had some intense moments. Have you had any funny, like some of your best, guests? I mean, you don't have to mention them by name, but what was so great about them?
So I have had lots of guests that I love, lots of guests that have actually become friends, which is, I think, one of the surprises that I did not expect in this whole thing. But one of the moments that truly I look back and I still laugh to this day is, I don't know if you remember last year, iPhone started doing this thing where like there are video reactions. So if it thinks you're putting your thumb up, it will like make this thumb bubble.
It's a little annoying. I'm just me.
It's so annoying. It's so annoying. I have mine all turned off. But I was interviewing Sarah Bessie, and we were talking about the Holy Spirit, and she did something with her hands right at the exact moment that she talked about Holy Spirit in our lives, and her entire screen filled up with fireworks. Like it turned black and there were fireworks everywhere. And if you watch the video, she and I both are trying to keep a straight face, trying to decide, like, are we going to ignore it and keep going? And she just goes, did I just set off fireworks? And we like burst out laughing. It was so funny.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. So since we're talking about guests and all that, one last question about guests.
Okay.
Dream guest. Do you have a dream guest?
I do.
You do?
I would love to interview Sister Beth Moore on this.
Sister Beth Moore?
Yes, that's what we lovingly call her on the internet. She's like she's our big sister. We look up to her. We love her. We adore her. Sister Beth. We affectionately call her Sister Beth
Moore. All right. So if you're listening to this podcast and you somehow know Beth Moore, let's make the connection for your girl, Kristin.
Yeah.
All right. Or Beth Moore, you're listening to this.
I'm sure she is.
You're listening to this, Beth Moore. Sister, this is Brother Naeem saying, let's get on the show. Let's make this happen. Okay?
Yes.
That was your dream guest. Okay. Yeah, okay. I wasn't thinking Beth Moore. I don't know why. I was thinking dream guest. I wasn't even thinking Christian. But this is a Christian podcast, so.
I mean, did you want me to say like Jennifer Aniston from Friends?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. Do you? Jennifer Aniston? Okay.
Sure. Yeah, let's go. Bring the whole Friends cast in. I'll talk to them all.
Okay, so it's either between Jennifer or Beth. We don't know. We don't know which one.
Yeah. Surely, same conversation, no matter, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. It's pretty much the same conversation. Yes. Okay. Now, let's talk about what this podcast has kind of done for you, right? I mean, obviously, it's done a lot of different things for you, but there are people watching this going, this is super interesting. I mean, she's got some amazing conversations. How do you, if you're talking to a person who's a little baby podcaster, like you said, what would you say to them? How do you start this thing?
You get Zoom and an internet connection, and you just start. I mean, we did not know what we were doing. And I just
I knew exactly what I was doing when I said,
did not.
I said, take this over. I knew exactly what I was doing. Take it over.
You set up your computer for this very interview. So don't tell me that you knew what you were doing.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I knew exactly what I was doing. I didn't say I know everything. I said I know when I don't know things. That's what I'm saying.
You knew what you were doing by giving it to me, you mean?
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Got it.
It would not be what it
No.
is if I still had it. You think? No,
Yes.
not at
No,
all.
I was kind of self-taught. I looked up stuff on YouTube. I reached out to some people that I knew
Hmm.
that had podcasts. And I was like, do you have any tips? Like, what's a good microphone that's not $1 billion? And how do we start this? And then I just started reaching out to, honestly, friends that I'd made on the internet and asked them if they wanted to come on and talk to me. Some of them said no. Some of them said yes. And then now I'll reach out to almost anyone. If they, I think it would be an interesting conversation. You have to be okay with rejection too. Like, you have to be okay with people saying
Yeah,
no.
that's going to be a problem for a lot of
It doesn't
us.
bother me.
That's so tough. I mean, like, kudos to you. What's that term, soul fragility? That's the term,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that. Can't handle rejection.
I have
And
it
most people,
in other areas. When people don't want to come on the podcast, it's
Mhm.
generally they're like a bigger name, quote unquote. And so I always just tell myself, like, if the platform was bigger, when the platform's bigger, they'll come, or they're
Okay,
busy, they have a schedule, whatever.
okay. So you're saying start small, start with whatever you got, start asking people. I mean, be courageous enough to make the ask, right? What else?
Yes. And have a plan. I think
Oh, okay.
what a lot of people probably don't know is that I put a lot of time into this podcast. Not because it's my job, but because it started as a hobby and because I want to do it really well. And so I research my guests. I read their books. I go to their websites. I do deep dives down their Instagram feeds to see what they're about. And then I try to get into the head of the listener and I craft my questions. So if I'm interviewing an author,
Okay.
oftentimes the marketing team will send a list of potential questions to ask
Oh,
in the
really?
interview. And I say, thank you so much. And I throw it straight in the garbage can.
What? Do they know you're doing this?
I don't know. They keep giving me their authors though,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they're
they
going
do.
to get that interview on another podcast. Like, again, I want
Got
this
it.
to be
You wanna
different. I want it to be
Mhm.
unique.
Okay. So what you're saying is to the young podcaster is, yeah, start small, make the ask, make sure you're unique
And
and not
just
like every
prepare.
other,
Yeah.
and prepare and super prepare. Be prepared. Awesome. That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Okay. So as you've done this, what do you think how have you changed? And um, if, little podcaster was going to start, and then they would start, what should you tell them, like, hey, you should expect yourself to change in certain areas in this way because I change in certain areas. Well, what are those areas? Now, I
I
know
think it
those
would.
were like 5 questions.
It's
I'm obviously not super prepared like you are. So yeah,
okay. I
answer
think it
2.5.
depends. I think it depends on what the podcast is and like what the show is and what the content is. You could do a podcast about movies and TV and books and it would be a great podcast, but I don't think it would change you in the same way as a show like this.
Aha,
Um,
okay. You don't think
because
so?
I don't. I don't. I think you would learn skills. I think you would get better at the craft.
Right,
But
right,
if I
right.
was doing
I mean,
a podcast talking about skincare and my fake nails that you like to point out, I would have to learn more about that content. But as far as like changing me as a person, I don't know that it would do
I mean,
anything. Whereas,
if you're asking people to be on your show, you are becoming a braver person.
sure.
Think about it. Think about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. But I think
You
what's
are.
really
You
changed me is the actual conversations. It's
okay? And
being
that's
here.
changed your perspective. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I have been called out on this show a handful of times where people have put me in my place in a very nice way, but multiple times where they're either like, well, I don't know that that's actually true, or asked me to explain what I think I believe. And so it has made me really have to think about, what do I believe and why do I believe it? And when you really start digging in to those kinds of questions, Like that's really interpersonal self-awareness work. That will change you.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. Do you want to share a particular incident?
That I got called out or just that changed me in general?
Yeah, like you felt like you got called out. I mean, obviously they're not saying, "Excuse me, that's wrong," or "Excuse
No.
me, what in the world are you talking about?"
I'm
Right?
trying to remember if there are specific ones. I know it's happened because I remember like, all of a sudden my face turns red and I'm like, all right, you're the host, stay in control. Like bring it back around. I don't know. I don't know if I can come up with a specific example.
Let me jog your memory. Has it been a
Okay.
point? Was there ever a time where you're talking and then you realize you're way over your head, like you have no idea what this person is saying, or you're like, I don't know how to answer that or be in this conversation anymore because this person's a lot smarter or a lot more knowledgeable than I am on the subject.
Yeah. When that happens, I just keep asking questions. I'm like, oh,
Okay.
or I'll make a joke and be like, well, I clearly know what that term means, but for the listener, why don't you unpack it? If you ever hear me say something like that, I don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Okay. So this is the 100th episode, correct?
It is. Yeah.
It is. It is. Wow. Wow. How do you feel?
I'm excited. I didn't ever, I don't know. I don't think I thought far enough ahead that like one day we would have our 100th episode and that it would be
Right.
as successful as it is.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, okay. So now since it is a kind of a moment where you stop and consider and pause and look at, okay, what all has happened, what God has allowed in the conversations you had. So it's good, on an episode like this, you can stop and look back. So
Yeah.
the good thing about that is that you can do that. But now I want to ask you, when you look forward to the next 100, what do you see? Do you see anything different?
I think I see more of the same, but like, just continuing to grow. I want to continue to have nuanced conversations. I would love to figure out a way where we can bring the listeners together in a community. Now that I'm starting to write sermon questions do you know that I'm doing this? I'm writing sermon questions for the episodes now. And so people can go on my Substack. They can sign up for it and they get emailed to them every week. And so I'm hoping that that's a place where listeners from different, not just only states, but different countries will be able to come together and kind of engage and get to know each other and make it more relational.
Okay. So how do they find your Substack?
It's linked in the show notes.
Okay.
You just click the link. I believe it's substacks.com/Chris. Nope, turning the gem. See, this is why I just put it in the show notes.
Did you say Substacks? I think you just said
Substack.
Substack.
It's a Substack, but I can't remember if it's turning the gem or if it's my name. That's why if they just scroll down, they can just click.
So you don't know. You basically don't know. That's what you're saying. You don't know. Just look at the show notes. Okay, that's it. Okay,
I should have looked it up.
Well, you should have looked it up. Okay, so when you think of the future, you think of not more of the same, more nuanced, and maybe the hope of you creating a sense of a community with people who listen to Becoming Church. Would there ever be a possibility of people to gather together, like kind of do a Becoming Church live recording gathering where people can come, they're fans of Becoming Church, and you have a live host or a live person, one of those shows.
Yeah. Like a Becoming Church conference. That would be awesome. See, this is where
conference with a night. Like, I mean, not a conference where you got to suit up
3 days.
And you're in. No. I'm talking about a fun time. I'm talking about, hey, it's an evening. Becoming Church is live. It's in this little venue, and we're recording.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the host, so obviously it's going to be a fun time. Like, we all know this.
Oh, yes. Yes.
But yes, that's why you're here, because I don't let myself dream those dreams, because in my brain, I'm still like, in 100 episodes, we'll have more episodes and more listeners. But yeah, that would be so fun. Guys, you'll have to let us know if this is something that you're interested in, because
So did I just give you an idea? Is that it?
that would be super fun. You did. Thank you so much.
Okay. So here's the thing. I need you to put that in the show notes. I need you to ask the audience who'd be interested, or I don't know how show notes work. You know what I'm saying? But if there was a way to sign up, like, for example, I'm listening to this thing, not me, but a person listening to this thing, and they go, you know what? Yeah, I'd do that. I want to come to that. A fun time, an evening, you know? Yeah, let's do that. Can I sign up for it? Can you do that?
I mean, I can put this sermon, this clip right here on Instagram. Every week there's a clip of the episode. It goes on Instagram. We can just ask people, is this something you're interested in? You want to put it in the comments. Let us know. Send me a DM.
Yeah. See, the thing, okay, so here's the trick. What I would say is, of course they're interested. Okay. Let's just assume they're interested, because people are interested. What we got to do, though, is we got to go, we're good doing it. We're doing this thing. And, depending on the scale of which we do it, depends on how many people are available on a particular night, whatever. But I think people are interested. But yes, if you want to find out if their people are interested, let's do that. And then tell them, hey, we're doing it. You sell tickets. First of all, 90% of the proceeds go to me. Okay, let's put that down. Let's just put that down somewhere.
That will not be happening.
Put it on the show notes, so it's legit.
You clearly don't know what show notes are.
Apparently I don't. No, I think it's a binding agreement. That's what I think. It's a binding agreement. That's what show notes are, and you put it down there. But anyways, no, it'd be a free event, or maybe it'd be an event with something, and you get a merch, becoming a church hat. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll have to plan it. We'll have to have a brainstorming session and plan it. But yes, that would be really a lot of fun.
All right.
Confetti cannons would be involved.
Okay. So as we wrap this up, we look to the future, we've looked at the past, looked to the future in terms of, creating more nuanced conversations, environment, and place to people to gather. Yeah. What else do you want to say to your audience? Having journeyed with them, some of them for a very long time. Some people have been watching and listening from day one. Others have jumped on recently. Yeah. Any word of wisdom, anything, any appreciation, anything you want to say?
Yeah. Are you trying to make me cry? Because it might work. I would say this, because, like I said, I would love to bring people together and have like a sense of community. But what people don't see happening behind the scenes is that I get to have all kinds of one-on-one conversations with people that listen to this show. You DM me on Instagram, and we are talking about hard stuff, real life stuff. Like, what do I do when my pastor says this? Or what do I do when my church says this? Or what do I do when my, family is throwing Bible bombs at me and it's not actually like theologically accurate? And so I think I just want to tell the listeners that I'm so grateful for their honesty. I'm so grateful that they trust me. My voice, obviously, thank you for listening to the show and reviewing it and sharing it with your people and all of that. But more than anything, I think I'm just really super honored that they trust me as their Instagram pastor, their internet pastor, their podcast pastor. Because I don't take it lightly at all when people trust me with really hard and heavy things and let me just kind of pray for them and remind them that there's hope and that God is with them in all of it. So, yeah.
Awesome.
It's really special.
That's great. That's great. Well, hey, I, for one, am so proud of you, so happy for you, and can't wait to see what amazing guests and conversations you have as you continue this work. So, hey, I'm I'm thankful that you've been brave enough to jump on this, as in I appreciate your hustle to make it happen, to make it work, because it's a big thing. And yeah, so thank you for not being discouraged by people's negativity, not being discouraged by the pace of which it's gone, just not being discouraged by a lot of things, which we all can be as we endeavor to do great things like this. So thanks for doing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. One last question.
Oh,
One last question, serious question. Okay. So what would you rate me as a host? Like where am I on host level here? I mean, come on.
You are a little baby podcast host, I would say.
Oh, come on.
Which means you only have potential to grow and do better. No, it was great.
We're going to cut this. We're going to cut this. You're not going to even see this in the show notes. Okay. Yeah. It's a wrap. We're wrapping this, baby.
Yes, guys, thank you for listening. Please continue to share this with your friends. Hey, if you share this on social, you can tag me at Kristin Mockler Young. You can tag at Naeem Fazal for this episode if you would like. And we're excited to see you one day at the live recording of Becoming Church. I guess we will let you know when that's going to happen. You can bring your confetti poppers and a friend, and we'll see you there.
I'll be there.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. And until next time, keep becoming the church to the people around you.